The vast spire of Zalaria's imperial palace rose high above the shimmering city below. Its golden towers caught the light of the twin suns, reflecting a brilliance that no human city could rival. Every structure spoke of power, precision, and centuries of alien culture. Yet underneath the beauty, there was a cold order that demanded respect. Within these walls, the Empress Velyara ruled with intelligence and grace, her presence commanding loyalty and obedience from every alien subject who dared to look upon her. Despite her composed exterior, there was a shadow in Velyara's green eyes. It was a memory she carried in silence, a human, long gone, whose smile and voice had once filled her life with warmth. He had been her husband, a rare visitor from a distant human colony who had fallen victim to the endless wars that spanned the galaxy. No day passed without the faint ache of loss, and the walls of her palace often felt emptier because of him. She had buried her grief behind duty, behind control, and behind the pride of an empress who ruled an entire species. Today, that quiet life of routine and caution was about to shatter. A distant hum of engines announced the arrival of a human delegation. The Zalarian skyports had prepared for them for weeks, lining landing pads with ceremonial banners and uniformed guards. Human ships were modest in size, their hulls sleek but far less imposing than Zalarian designs. From the observation deck, Velyara watched them descend with curiosity, noting the discipline and confidence of these strange, resilient creatures. Her advisors stood at her side, discussing logistics, ceremonial protocol, and security measures, but she barely heard their words. The delegation disembarked with orderly steps, humans moving in formations that spoke of military training and pride. At the center of their group walked a man who seemed to carry himself with a quiet strength. He was tall, with broad shoulders and an air of calm authority that made heads turn, both human and alien. His dark hair was neatly kept, and his eyes, a deep blue, scanned the surroundings with intelligence and caution. His uniform was simple, yet it hinted at a disciplined life of service. This man was Captain Elias Kane, assigned as the guard for the human envoy. Velyara had only seconds to take him in, but those seconds were enough. Her breath caught. She froze in place, every fiber of her being reacting in shock. The man before her bore a striking resemblance to her late husband. The same strong jaw, the same calm eyes that seemed to see the world with clarity and honesty, the same quiet strength that had once made her heart race. It was impossible. Years had passed, countless humans had come and gone. How could one appear now so suddenly in her palace and look like him? Her advisors noticed her sudden pause. Some whispered nervously, unsure of what caused the Empress's hesitation. They knew her as a figure of unshakable composure, but this unexpected reaction made them uneasy. A few speculated political danger, others feared a trap. Yet Velyara's mind was not on politics. It was on him, on the echoes of the past. Elias, unaware of the internal storm he had unleashed, approached the throne room for the ceremonial greeting. He walked with the measured steps of a soldier, alert but not aggressive, respectful yet confident. As he stepped into the vast chamber, his eyes met Velyara's, and something subtle passed between them. A recognition, a curiosity, though Elias could not have known why. Velyara's advisors braced themselves. Protocol demanded a formal bow from the visitors, and they expected the Empress to respond with her customary grace. Instead, Velyara remained frozen, her mind grappling with a tidal wave of memories. She remembered the laughter of her husband, the feel of his hand in hers, the sound of his voice that had once been her anchor in a chaotic galaxy. Yet here was this man, alive in resemblance but not in name, and nothing in her long reign had prepared her for such a moment. Elias inclined his head politely. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice steady, deep, and calm. His words were careful but sincere, carrying the kind of respect that humans often showed their leaders. Velyara blinked, realizing she had been staring too long. She forced herself to respond, her voice steady though her heart raced. "Welcome to Zalaria," she said, the words smooth but tinged with emotion she did not intend to show. The ceremonial exchange continued, but Velyara's thoughts were elsewhere. She noted the subtle differences between this human and her late husband. Elias' features were sharper, his movements slightly more controlled. Yet the essence, the courage, the gentleness, the sense of honor, was undeniably the same. She wondered if this was fate, coincidence, or something far stranger than she could comprehend. Once the formal greetings concluded, Elias was assigned quarters within the palace complex. The room was modest but comfortable, equipped with human-style amenities that the Zalarians had learned to accommodate for their diplomatic guests. Elias unpacked quietly, noting the attention to detail and the subtle ways the palace was designed to impress and intimidate simultaneously. Yet he remained calm, ever observant, ever aware that he was a guest in a world far beyond his own. Velyara, meanwhile, could not let the moment pass. From her private chambers, she activated hidden surveillance systems. The Xylarians had technology that could observe without being seen, and she used it now to watch Elias. He moved with purpose, helping servants who were struggling with human-sized objects, asking questions politely, learning quickly. There was a spark of curiosity in his eyes that reminded her of her husband's own. It was more than resemblance. It was a reflection of human resilience and intelligence, qualities the Xylarians admired but could not truly emulate. A minor crisis soon tested both the Empress and her unexpected visitor. A maintenance drone malfunctioned in the lower levels, threatening to collapse a section of the palace. Alarms blared, lights flashed red, and guards rushed to respond. Without hesitation, Elias moved. He ran toward the danger, assessing the situation with quick logic, giving clear commands, and using tools in ways the Xylarians had not anticipated. Within moments, he stabilized the situation, preventing damage and potential injury. Velyara watched, astonished. The humans she had met before were competent diplomats or soldiers, but Elias' instinct, bravery, and quick thinking were exceptional. He had saved lives not out of obligation alone, but out of genuine concern. His actions reminded her of what she had loved in her husband, the combination of intelligence, courage, and heart. Yet now she also feared. If others in the court saw him as a threat, if they learned of the uncanny resemblance, it could endanger him and potentially destabilize her rule. After the incident, Elias returned to his quarters, calm as if nothing had happened. Velyara remained in her chambers, unable to look away from the monitors. She felt a strange mixture of hope, nostalgia, and apprehension. Humans were different from Xylarians. They were unpredictable, emotional, yet capable of remarkable courage. She wondered if Elias represented the best of that species, or if fate had simply chosen to remind her of loss in the most complicated way possible. The day ended with a quiet tension in the palace. Advisors speculated over whispered conversations. Guards questioned protocols, unsure whether to view Elias as a guest or a potential risk. And Velyara, alone with her thoughts, realized that nothing would ever be the same. The arrival of this human guard, this man who resembled the ghost of her past, had created ripples that would grow into waves she could not yet foresee. As night fell over the alien city, the twin suns dipping below the horizon, Velyara stood on a balcony, looking down at the lights of Xylaria. Elias' figure moved calmly in the palace courtyard, his posture alert, his presence commanding even in solitude. Velyara felt an unfamiliar stir of anticipation. Perhaps this human was a messenger of change, a catalyst for something she had long denied herself. Perhaps he was merely a coincidence, but deep inside she knew better. She had faced wars, betrayals, and the weight of an empire. Yet nothing had unsettled her like the presence of this man. And as she turned back into the quiet halls of her palace, Velyara realized that she would need to confront her feelings, her memories, and the possibility that humanity, embodied in Elias Kane, might challenge her understanding of loyalty, courage, and even love. For the first time in years, the Empress did not feel entirely in control. And for the first time, she allowed herself a quiet, forbidden hope that the arrival of a human might bring not just trouble, but a chance to witness the extraordinary in the ordinary. The palace, vast and shining, seemed to hum with possibilities. And somewhere within its golden walls, two lives, so different yet so strangely connected, were beginning a story that neither could yet understand, but both would be changed forever. The next morning, the Xylarian palace was alive with movement and whispers. Servants floated silently on magnetic platforms, bringing trays of food and supplies. Advisors hurried from chamber to chamber, discussing logistics, security, and the strange human who had arrived the day before. The city below glimmered as the twin suns rose again, casting golden light across the alien towers, but inside the palace, tension lingered like a shadow. Elias Kane walked through the halls with quiet confidence. Every step he took was careful, respectful, yet undeniably firm. Despite being surrounded by advanced technology and alien architecture, he moved as if he belonged, observing, learning, and adapting. His eyes scanned the walls, the doors, and the ceiling, noticing details that the aliens took for granted. He spoke politely with the servants, asking simple questions about their lives and routines. Even the smallest human gestures, the smile he offered to a young attendant, the careful way he replaced a fallen tray, caught the attention of those who watched. Unseen by Elias, Empress Velyara observed him again from a private chamber with access to advanced surveillance systems. She could see everything, the way he interacted with the staff, the way he walked, the way he moved through the palace as if he were a part of it. Every time she watched, she felt the strange pull of familiarity, the echo of her lost husband in his actions. Yet she was cautious. She did not want her advisors to see her distracted, and she certainly did not want her emotions to interfere with her judgment. A crisis soon presented itself. A section of the lower palace, used for storage and maintenance, suffered a structural failure. The Zalarian technology was advanced, but even the best systems could fail. Alarms rang through the palace, and red warning lights flashed along the corridors. Guards rushed toward the source, and a few civilians screamed in fear. Without hesitation, Elias ran toward the danger. He had been trained for emergencies, and his instincts guided him. He shouted instructions in human language, which Zalarian attendants quickly translated with devices. He identified the most unstable areas, signaling the guards to evacuate civilians. Using tools from the maintenance room, he secured a support beam that threatened to collapse. The humans' calm but decisive action impressed the Zalarian guards, who had never seen someone act so quickly without panicking. From her chamber, Velyara watched, her heart racing. The resemblance to her late husband was undeniable, but it was more than that. Elias' courage, his intelligence, and his sense of responsibility reminded her of the best parts of humanity, the qualities that had drawn her to her husband in the first place. She realized, perhaps for the first time, that humans could be more than diplomats or soldiers. They could be heroes. Once the immediate danger was resolved, Elias returned to his quarters as if nothing had happened. The palace staff murmured in admiration, and even some of the advisors could not hide their surprise. Velyara, however, remained troubled. She had seen the humans' bravery before, but Elias was different. There was something about him, something that connected the past to the present, that she could not ignore. In the following days, Velyara began a careful observation of Elias. She did not follow him openly. She did not want to seem weak or distracted. Instead, she used hidden cameras, monitoring devices, and her own intuition. She noticed how he helped injured staff without being asked, how he patiently learned the customs and language of the Zalarians, and how he treated even the lowest-ranking servants with respect. His presence stirred something in the palace, a quiet admiration and curiosity among those who saw him interact. Meanwhile, Elias continued to adapt. He learned the language and customs quickly, asking questions politely but with genuine interest. He did not judge the aliens for their differences. Instead, he tried to understand them, to see the world through their eyes while still holding onto his own human identity. His humility and intelligence earned him the respect of some of the more open-minded Zalarian staff, who began to consider humans as more than just distant, primitive visitors. But not everyone welcomed him. A few of the Empress's advisors and nobles were wary. They had long viewed humans as outsiders, unpredictable and potentially dangerous. Elias' resemblance to the Empress's late husband only fueled their suspicions. Whispers of political schemes and potential threats circulated through the palace halls. Some wondered if the human had been sent with secret motives, while others feared the Empress's attention on him could be exploited. One afternoon, Velyara decided to test Elias without revealing herself. She arranged for a simulated emergency in the palace's lower levels. It was a controlled test, designed to see how he would react under pressure. When alarms sounded, Elias immediately sprang into action. He assessed the situation, gave instructions, and worked alongside the Zalarian guards to contain the problem. His quick thinking prevented any actual damage, and his calm demeanor impressed even the most skeptical advisors. Afterward, Velyara reflected on what she had witnessed. Elias was brave, intelligent, and kind, a rare combination. He acted not for recognition or reward, but because it was the right thing to do. The qualities that defined humans, she realized, were precisely what made them extraordinary. Unlike many Zalarian nobles, whose loyalty could be bought or manipulated, Elias' sense of duty and honor seemed innate. Despite her admiration, Velyara also felt a growing unease. There was something about Elias' origins that she did not understand. How could one man resemble her husband so closely? She knew the odds were astronomically small. Could it be coincidence, or was there something deliberate behind it? Her curiosity grew into an obsession, and she ordered her intelligence units to quietly investigate Elia's background. Elias, for his part, remained unaware of the Empress's scrutiny. He continued his daily routines, helping staff, learning about Zalarian culture, and observing the palace. He had a natural curiosity and empathy that allowed him to navigate a world so different from his own. Each day, he learned something new, not just about the aliens, but about himself. He realized that humans had unique abilities to adapt, to problem solve, and to connect with others emotionally. These traits, he thought, were part of what made humans extraordinary. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Elias found himself alone in a quiet courtyard. The light reflected off the alien spires, casting long shadows. He thought about the Empress, about the strange feeling he sensed whenever she looked at him. There was respect, yes, but something else, an intensity he could not explain. He shrugged it off, focusing instead on the palace itself, the people he had met, and the mission that had brought him here. Velyara, watching from her hidden observation post, felt a surge of conflicting emotions. She admired Elias' humanity, yet she feared the implications of his presence. Could he be a threat, or was he a chance? A symbol of human resilience, courage, and honor? She did not know, and that uncertainty made her uneasy. The past she had buried so deeply now felt alive, mirrored in the actions and appearance of this remarkable human. As the night grew darker, palace guards whispered among themselves about the unusual bond forming between the Empress and Elias. Some were concerned, others intrigued. The human's arrival had already shifted the delicate balance of power within the palace, and Elias' presence threatened to change it even further. Velyara knew that the days ahead would be filled with challenges, political, personal, and perhaps even dangerous, but she could not deny the quiet hope she felt. Humans were strange creatures. They were fragile compared to the aliens, yet capable of remarkable bravery. They were emotional, yet capable of wisdom and strategy. And Elias Kane, standing quietly among them, exemplified all these qualities. Velyara realized that she was witnessing something rare, an individual who could inspire loyalty, courage, and admiration simply by being himself. The palace slept, but the Empress remained awake. She stared at the empty courtyard where Elias had stood, remembering her husband's presence in that same position so many years ago. The resemblance was uncanny, and the emotions it stirred were overwhelming. She did not yet know what role Elias would play in the days to come, but one thing was clear. His arrival had already begun to change the palace, and perhaps even the Zalarian Empire itself. And as the stars emerged in the alien sky, Velyara allowed herself a quiet thought, a hope that this human might not just remind her of the past, but also help shape the future in ways she could not yet imagine. The story of two lives, so different yet so strangely connected, was only beginning. The palace of Zalaria hummed with quiet activity as the sun rose once more, painting the golden towers in soft light. Empress Velyara sat in her private chamber, watching the city stretch beneath her, but her mind was far from the beauty outside. She thought of Elias Kane, the human who had arrived with the delegation. Every day, his presence reminded her of her lost husband, yet there was something more to him, something she could not yet understand. She had ordered her intelligence units to investigate his background, but they had found nothing unusual beyond his service record and diplomatic credentials. Still, the resemblance was uncanny, and her intuition told her that more lay hidden beneath the surface. Elias began his day in the palace with his usual routine. He checked the corridors, spoke politely to the staff, and assisted with minor tasks to learn about the palace's operations. He moved through a world vastly different from his own, yet he adapted with remarkable ease. His observations were careful and methodical, but his kindness and empathy were noticeable even to the most distant Zalarians. Unlike many of the aliens who prized logic above all else, he combined reason with intuition and compassion, a combination that fascinated the Empress. Velyara's curiosity grew daily. She did not dare confront him directly yet, afraid of exposing her own vulnerability. Instead, she watched, noted, and pondered. The human's arrival had been a diplomatic necessity, but Elias had become more than a visitor. He had become a point of reflection, a connection to the past she had thought she had buried forever. She could not explain why she felt compelled to observe him. Perhaps it was hope, or perhaps it was the haunting memory of loss. One afternoon, an unexpected incident escalated the tension within the palace. A small fire broke out in the storage sector, likely caused by an electrical fault in the Zalarian's ancient systems. Alarms rang, and the palace staff rushed to respond. Elias, without hesitation, ran toward the danger. He quickly assessed the situation, guiding the staff to safety, and found the source of the fire. Using a combination of human tools and quick thinking, he contained the flames before the Zalarian guards could fully intervene. Velyara observed from her monitoring station, her heart pounding. She admired his decisiveness and bravery. Every action he took reminded her of the human spirit, the courage and ingenuity that had once inspired her husband. Yet alongside admiration, a deeper curiosity took root. How could a man so ordinary in many ways carry traits so extraordinary? And why did he resemble her husband so perfectly? As the day continued, the palace advisors grew uneasy. They noticed the subtle shift in Velyara's attention, the quiet admiration she displayed whenever Elias was nearby. Whispers spread through the chambers. Some feared that the Empress's focus on a human could weaken her authority, while others speculated that Elias might be more than a mere guard. The rumors added tension to the already complex palace politics. Velyara, sensing the rising anxiety, called her closest aide, Kelith, to her side. "Watch him," she instructed softly. "Learn everything you can, but do not alarm him. We must understand who this human truly is." Kelith, a loyal and skilled observer, nodded and began discreetly monitoring Elias' activities. The palace was vast, but with careful observation, nothing went unnoticed. Meanwhile, Elias continued to learn. He noticed patterns in the palace that were invisible to most Zalarians, using logic and intuition to navigate the complex social and political landscape. He began asking questions about the Empress's decisions, not to challenge her authority, but to understand the reasoning behind them. His questions were polite, thoughtful, and showed a depth of perception that impressed even the most experienced advisors. One evening, Velyara summoned Elias to the observation balcony under the guise of showing him the city. The twin suns were setting, casting long shadows across the alien towers. The air was warm but tinged with the scent of ozone, a reminder of the technological marvels surrounding them. Elias stood beside the Empress, silent but attentive, as she spoke of the city, the empire, and the challenges of leadership. "You move through this palace with ease," she said carefully. "Yet this is not your world. You are human and humans are not like us." Her voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed her curiosity. Elias glanced at her, a faint smile on his lips. "I am learning," he said simply. "I observe, I ask questions, and I try to help where I can. Humans adapt quickly when they must. It is how we survive." Humanity had survived countless challenges, from planetary disasters to interstellar wars, by relying on intelligence, creativity, and empathy. Elias embodied these traits, and she felt both admiration and unease at the same time. The moment was interrupted by a sudden alert from the palace monitoring system. A breach had been detected in one of the lower levels. Aliens and humans alike rushed to respond. Without hesitation, Elias followed, coordinating guards, moving civilians to safety, and assessing the situation with precision. The breach turned out to be a malfunctioning security drone, but Elias' calm, decisive action prevented panic and ensured that no one was harmed. Afterward, Velyara could not contain her thoughts. She realized that Elias' courage was not just training or instinct, it was character. He acted because he understood responsibility, not because he sought reward or recognition. She had seen many soldiers and guards, but few had the combination of bravery, intelligence, and empathy that Elias displayed naturally. Later that evening, as the palace quieted, Velyara confronted her inner doubts. She wondered if Elias' resemblance to her husband was a coincidence or something more. Could he be a product of human genetic engineering? Was it possible that the humans had kept a secret for decades, perhaps even related to her husband? Her mind raced with possibilities, yet she had no proof. All she knew was the undeniable pull she felt whenever she watched him act, a mixture of nostalgia, curiosity, and respect. Meanwhile, Elias spent the night in his quarters, reflecting on his place in the palace. He knew his resemblance to someone the Empress had lost might be noticeable, yet he did not understand its significance. What mattered to him was the people around him, the humans and aliens alike, and his desire to act with honor and courage. He did not seek attention, and yet attention found him, both from the staff and from the Empress herself. The next day, Velyara ordered her intelligence units to dig deeper into Elias' history. The results surprised her. While there was no direct evidence linking him to her late husband, the genetic patterns in his DNA were remarkably similar. Certain traits, certain markers, even some mannerisms mirrored the records of her husband. She began to suspect that Elias was either engineered from old human-alien projects long forgotten, or that fate had played a hand in sending him to her at this exact moment. The discovery did not make her feel fear. Instead, it strengthened her fascination. Elias was more than a guard. He was a symbol of something greater, the potential of humanity, the resilience of individuals, and the mysterious ways the universe worked. She began to see him not as a reminder of loss, but as a possibility, a chance to witness the extraordinary in the ordinary. Yet the palace was not without danger. Some Zalarian advisors and nobles viewed Elias as a threat. Whispers grew into plans. Could the human be manipulated? Could he be used to weaken the Empress's authority? Velyara sensed the tension and knew she would have to act carefully. Trust would be necessary, but it could not be given lightly. As Elias continued his routine, helping staff, observing palace operations, and learning from every interaction, Velyara began to see a new potential. Perhaps humans were more than allies. They could be partners in survival, intelligence, and courage. Elias' actions demonstrated the best of humanity, and she felt a quiet admiration that grew stronger each day. By the time night fell over Zalaria, Velyara realized that her feelings were no longer simple curiosity. She admired Elias, respected his abilities, and felt the strange pull of familiarity and destiny. Humans, she thought, were remarkable creatures. They were fragile compared to Zalarians, yet capable of incredible bravery, intelligence, and empathy. Elias Kane was living proof of that, and she felt that his presence in her palace could change everything, her rule, her people, and perhaps even herself. And so, the palace slept under the twin moons' golden spires reflecting silver light. Within its walls, the stage was set. Two lives, human and alien, intertwined by fate, courage, and curiosity, were beginning a story that would test their courage, their intelligence, and the bonds that connected all living beings. And for the first time in many years, Empress Velyara allowed herself to wonder not only about the past she had lost, but about the future that might be waiting with Elias Kane by her side. The palace was quieter than usual, but tension lingered in the air like a storm about to break. Empress Velyara moved through the halls with grace, yet her mind was restless. Each day, Elias Kane impressed her not only with courage and intelligence, but also with the kindness and humility that seemed so rare in a palace full of power and ambition. She had observed him constantly, yet there was still a mystery about him that she could not unravel. His presence challenged everything she thought she knew about humans, about loyalty, and even about herself. Elias, for his part, continued to adapt to the alien world with quiet determination. He had learned to read the subtle cues in the Zalarian court, the shifts in tone, the glances, the whispers among the advisors. He understood the dangers of palace intrigue, even without fully comprehending every detail of their politics. His priority remained clear: to serve, to protect, and to act with honor. Humans, he knew, were often judged by their actions more than their words, and he intended to prove the value of his species through both. That afternoon, an urgent alert reached the palace. A group of rogue nobles, dissatisfied with Velyara's rule, had attempted to manipulate the palace security systems. Their plan was unclear, but the threat was immediate. Alarms rang, and the staff rushed to respond. Velyara's advisors debated the best course of action, their voices overlapping with confusion and panic. In the center of it all, Elias moved swiftly, assessing the situation with clarity. Without hesitation, he guided the guards and staff through a series of defensive measures. He identified weak points in the security network, instructed the guards on where to position themselves, and ensured that civilians were safely relocated. His actions were precise, calm, and effective. Velyara observed from her chambers, her pulse quickening with a mixture of fear and admiration. Here was a human, unfamiliar with their technology and culture, yet capable of saving lives and maintaining order in a way that inspired trust. Once the immediate threat was neutralized, the Empress summoned Elias to a private chamber. The walls were adorned with the symbols of her rule, and the air was heavy with the scent of exotic oils and metals. She studied him carefully, aware that the court outside might be watching for any sign of weakness. "You have done well," she said, her voice steady, though her thoughts raced. "You acted with courage and intelligence. Not many would have done as you did. We rely on observation, quick thinking, and teamwork. I did not act alone. Your guards and staff assisted me, and they did so with loyalty and skill. Humans, she thought, had a remarkable capacity to adapt, to lead, and to act with honor even in unfamiliar situations. She could see why her late husband had possessed similar traits, and the resemblance now seemed more than physical. It was a reflection of character. The conversation turned to more personal matters, though carefully veiled in formality. Velyara asked about his past, his upbringing, and his experiences in human colonies. Elias answered honestly, without revealing more than necessary, yet his words conveyed depth, resilience, and a sense of responsibility that impressed the Empress. Each detail, each story, seemed to draw her closer to understanding him, yet also reminded her of the loss she had endured. As they spoke, the palace staff moved silently around them, aware of the unusual interaction, but respecting the Empress's authority. Whispers spread through the corridors, some admiring Elias' bravery, others suspicious of the bond forming between the human and their ruler. Velyara knew that she had to navigate these politics carefully. Trust could be dangerous, but it was necessary if she wanted to protect both her empire and the human who had proven himself invaluable. Days passed, and tensions continued to rise within the palace. Some nobles plotted to challenge Velyara's rule, seeing her fascination with a human as weakness. Others sought to use Elias as a pawn, hoping to manipulate the Empress through him. Velyara was aware of these dangers, but she refused to act rashly. She trusted her judgment, and she had observed Elias closely enough to know that his loyalty was genuine. Humans, she realized, were capable of extraordinary courage, intelligence, and honor, qualities that could not be bought or coerced. One evening, a new threat emerged. A group of mercenaries, likely hired by the discontented nobles, attempted to infiltrate the palace. They were well-armed, skilled, and intent on causing chaos. Alarms blared, and the palace guards mobilized, but the humans and Xylarians alike faced a coordinated challenge. Elias, as always, acted swiftly. He assessed the situation, directed the guards to strategic positions, and took calculated risks to protect the Empress and the staff. Velyara watched from her observation chamber, her heart pounding. She had faced wars, rebellions, and countless threats during her reign, but the presence of Elias gave her a sense of reassurance she had not felt in years. His actions were not reckless. They were measured, intelligent, and selfless. He did not seek glory. He sought to protect, to serve, and to ensure the safety of those around him. The battle within the palace corridors was intense but brief. Elias' quick thinking and ability to inspire cooperation allowed the defenders to neutralize the mercenaries without significant loss. Civilians were unharmed, the palace remained secure, and the intruders were captured. Velyara's confidence in the human deepened, and she realized that his presence was not a weakness but a strength that could stabilize her rule. After the conflict, the Empress requested a private audience with Elias once more. The chamber was quiet, the faint hum of palace machinery in the background. Velyara spoke with a mixture of authority and curiosity. "You have proven yourself more capable than I could have imagined. Your actions today saved lives and protected the palace. I must ask, how do you possess such calm and skill in a world so different from your own?" "We rely on observation, teamwork, and reasoning. Courage comes from understanding what is right, not from strength alone, and loyalty is earned through respect and trust, not command. I do what I believe is necessary, and I act to protect those around me." She saw not only the human's intelligence and bravery, but also the essence of his character, the qualities that had made her husband remarkable and the traits that now drew her attention so strongly. She understood that Elias' presence was not just a coincidence. He represented something greater, something rare and valuable in the universe. In the following days, Velyara began to make subtle changes in the palace. She allowed Elias more freedom to observe and interact, trusting him to act with judgment and discretion. Staff began to respect him, not out of fear or obligation, but because his actions consistently demonstrated integrity, courage, and fairness. The Xylarian court, initially wary, started to recognize that humans could contribute positively to their society, and some nobles quietly admired Elias' presence. Despite these advances, Velyara knew the palace was not yet safe from intrigue. Factions continued to whisper, plotting in secret, and the threat of betrayal remained. She realized that she had to make a difficult choice: to publicly trust Elias, to acknowledge his role, and to integrate him into the inner workings of the empire. It was a risk, one that could either strengthen her rule or provoke further opposition. When she finally made the decision, it was with clarity and resolve. She summoned her council and spoke openly of Elias' contributions. This human, Elias Kane, has proven his loyalty, courage, and intelligence. He has saved lives, protected this palace, and demonstrated the qualities that make humans worthy allies. I trust him, and I will continue to do so. Others were impressed, realizing that Velyara had the wisdom to judge character over tradition. And Elias, humble as ever, accepted the acknowledgement with quiet dignity, knowing that his actions had earned trust rather than seeking it. Velyara watched him, feeling a sense of closure and hope. Humans were remarkable creatures, capable of loyalty, bravery, and ingenuity that transcended differences in species and culture. Elias Kane was living proof, and she allowed herself to believe that his presence could not only protect her rule, but also bridge the gap between humans and Xylarians in ways she had never imagined. The night fell over Xylaria, and the palace seemed calm, but within its walls the story of two lives, so different, yet connected by courage, respect, and destiny, was only beginning to unfold. Velyara knew that challenges remained, that intrigue and danger were far from over, yet for the first time in years she felt a quiet confidence. With Elias by her side, humans and Xylarians alike could face whatever the universe had in store, guided by courage, intelligence, and honor. The palace of Xylaria glowed under the soft light of the twin moons, and the city below shimmered like a sea of stars. Empress Velyara moved through the halls with purpose, her mind clear yet alert. The past weeks had tested her patience, her judgment, and her heart, but she had grown more confident in her decisions. Elias Kane, the human who had arrived unexpectedly, had proven himself time and time again, not only through courage and intelligence, but also through loyalty and integrity. The tensions within the palace had not vanished. Some nobles still whispered behind closed doors, suspicious of the Empress's trust in a human. Others saw Elias as a threat to their ambitions, and a faction of them had begun plotting to exploit his presence for their gain. Velyara was aware of these dangers, but she refused to be swayed by fear or politics. She had seen the truth of Elias' character, and that truth gave her strength. Elias, meanwhile, had grown more comfortable in the palace. His daily routine now included assisting the Empress, observing palace operations, and learning from the Xylarian staff. Yet he never allowed himself to become complacent. Every day presented new challenges, and he met them with the same calm determination he had shown since his arrival. He understood that humans had a unique ability to adapt and survive, but he also recognized that trust had to be earned, and respect had to be demonstrated through action. One morning, a new threat emerged. Scouts reported that a rival faction of Xylarian nobles had gathered forces outside the city, intending to challenge the Empress's authority directly. Their goal was to provoke chaos and weaken her rule. Velyara's advisors debated strategies, their voices tense and hurried. Some urged caution, others advocated immediate action. In the midst of this uncertainty, Elias stepped forward with a plan. He proposed a coordinated defense that combined human tactics with Xylarian technology. Guards would be positioned strategically, civilians would be evacuated to safe zones, and the palace's advanced defenses would be integrated into a comprehensive protective network. His approach was precise, logical, and innovative, drawing on human experience in conflict and problem-solving. Velyara studied his plan carefully, impressed not only by its effectiveness but also by the clarity of his thinking under pressure. The Empress gave her approval, and the plan was set into motion. As the rival faction approached, Elias moved with the guards, guiding them, coordinating their actions, and ensuring that every possible threat was anticipated. The humans' adaptability and the Xylarians' advanced technology worked together seamlessly, creating a defense that was both strong and flexible. The rival faction launched a sudden attack, expecting the palace to be unprepared. Instead, they found themselves facing a well-coordinated defense. Guards moved with precision, guided by Elias' instructions. Defensive systems activated at exactly the right moments. Traps and barriers delayed the invaders, while human and Xylarian units worked together to neutralize the threat. The battle was tense, but thanks to Elias' leadership, the palace remained secure and no civilians were harmed. Velyara watched the events unfold from the observation chamber, her heart swelling with admiration. Elias' courage, intelligence, and ability to inspire cooperation had once again prevented disaster. She realized that he had not only proven his value as a guard, but also as a symbol of the potential within humanity. His presence challenged old prejudices, showed the strength of collaboration, and reminded her of the qualities she had once loved in her husband. After the attack was repelled, Velyara summoned Elias to the central hall. The chamber was quiet, the air still from the aftermath of battle. She approached him, her expression both formal and warm. "You have done more than protect this palace," she said. "You have proven the worth of your species and the strength of character that I once thought unique to my husband. Your actions have saved lives, preserved order, and inspired trust. For that, I thank you. I did not act for reward or recognition." Elias had reminded her that courage, loyalty, and intelligence were as powerful as any weapon, and that trust and honor could unite species and cultures in ways that politics alone could not. In the following days, the aftermath of the attack required careful management. Some nobles attempted to shift blame or downplay the human's role, but Velyara stood firm. She publicly acknowledged Elias' contributions, not as a replacement for her late husband, but as a recognition of human courage, intelligence, and honor. The court watched in astonishment, and many began to reconsider their opinions of humans. Those who had doubted Elias now saw that humans could be allies, protectors, and partners in the governance of the empire. Elias, as always, remained modest. He assisted where needed, taught what he could about human tactics and problem-solving, and continued to adapt to Zalarian culture. Yet he never sought fame or recognition. His goal remained simple, to act with integrity and to help those around him. His actions, however, had a profound effect on the palace, changing not only how humans were perceived, but also how leadership, loyalty, and courage were understood. Velyara found herself spending more time with Elias, not as an empress observing a guard, but as someone who valued his insight, judgment, and perspective. She asked him questions about human society, about conflict and cooperation, and about the qualities that allowed humans to survive in a dangerous universe. His answers were thoughtful and measured, demonstrating the depth of human experience and the strength of human intelligence. Through these conversations, Velyara began to see a new vision for the Zalarian Empire. Humans were not simply outsiders or visitors. They were capable partners who could bring new ideas, innovation, and resilience to her people. Elias represented the best of humanity, and she recognized that his presence could strengthen the empire in ways she had never imagined. One evening, as the twin moons reflected off the golden spires, Velyara and Elias stood together on a balcony overlooking the city. The air was calm, and the palace seemed peaceful for the first time in days. She turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "You have changed much in a short time," she said. "Not just in this palace, but in my understanding of humans, of courage, and of what it means to lead. You have shown both, Your Majesty." She no longer saw him as a reminder of loss, but as a symbol of hope, courage, and partnership. The days that followed were filled with renewed activity and cooperation. Elias continued to assist in palace operations, help train guards in new tactics, and observe the dynamics of the Zalarian court. His presence encouraged collaboration between humans and Zalarians, and slowly, the court began to embrace the potential of interspecies partnership. Factions that had once doubted the Empress's judgment began to see the wisdom in trusting Elias, not because he was human, but because he acted with integrity and courage. Velyara, for her part, grew more confident in her role as leader. She had faced rebellion, intrigue, and personal grief, yet she had chosen to trust someone from another species based on character rather than tradition or expectation. The result was clear. The palace was safer, the staff more loyal, and her understanding of humanity and leadership had deepened. In the final weeks of Elias' assignment, the Empress made a bold decision. She formally recognized him as an official advisor and protector within the palace, granting him authority that had never before been given to a human. It was a symbolic gesture, a recognition of his courage and integrity, and a declaration to the court that humans were capable of great things. Elias accepted with humility, knowing that his role was not about power but about service. As the palace settled into a new rhythm, Velyara reflected on the journey that had begun with a single glance. The human guard who resembled her lost husband had arrived unexpectedly, bringing with him courage, intelligence, and the qualities that reminded her of the best of humanity. Through his actions, he had changed not only the perception of humans within the empire but also the Empress herself. And as she stood once more on the balcony, looking out over the city of Zalaria, Velyara allowed herself to hope. The past was gone, but the future held promise. Humans and Zalarians could work together, learn from each other, and face the universe with courage and wisdom. And in the center of that possibility stood Elias Kane, a human who had proven that bravery, honor, and intelligence transcended species, race, or origin. The palace, once a place of strict order and distant authority, now felt alive with collaboration, trust, and the potential for greatness. And in that moment, Velyara realized something profound. Humanity, in its courage and resilience, had truly arrived, not as conquerors, but as partners, allies, and symbols of hope. The story of two lives, so different yet so connected, had reached a moment of triumph. The Empress had faced her fears, the human had proven his worth, and the palace had been transformed by courage, intelligence, and trust. Together, they had demonstrated that the universe could be shaped not by power alone, but by the strength of character, the wisdom to lead, and the courage to act. And as the twin moons rose higher in the sky, casting silver light across the city, Velyara and Elias stood side by side, ready to face the future together, knowing that the bond between humans and Xylarians had become something enduring, remarkable, and full of hope.